Both Amber and I share the same passion, tracking down dangerous wild animals, especially the ones that pose a threat to people. This time, we decided to head back to Amber's hometown, currently overrun by wild boars. We knew it wouldn't be an easy mission, but that didn't matter. Our spirits were high, and we were more than ready to dive into the action. So tag along and join us for this thrilling adventure. We got to the hunting site pretty early. After a quick strategy chat with the crew, we grabbed our familiar hunting rifles and moved out. We hadn't gone far up the mountain when the sound of the hunting dogs barking caught our attention. I rushed closer and spotted a wild boar moving in and out of thick brush. Suddenly, it charged out in panic. Luckily, I reacted fast and fired a clean, decisive shot, cutting off the ambush before it even started. The boar dropped instantly. My heart was still pounding from that life or death moment.
Tem que subir reto, Rael. Você tá pegando pro lado esquerdo?
Just up the mountain, one of my buddies had also taken down a boar. Gunshots rang out, slicing through the quiet air. The boar lost balance and tumbled down the slope. About 10 minutes later, I changed positions after getting a signal from Amber. The trees here were dense. A boar could charge out at any moment, so I stayed on high alert. Before I could finish that thought, a dark blur came rushing toward me. I fired off several quick, sharp shots on reflex, and thank God, one of them hit the mark right away. I'll admit, being out here alone with just my rifle was a little nerve-wracking, but instinct and experience kicked in. Even in surprise situations like this, I was able to stay calm and handle it cleanly. After those intense moments, we waited around for about 30 minutes with no signs of movement. The earlier gunshots must have scared the boars deeper into hiding. We split up the search, and then we heard it. Faint footsteps rustling in the distance. "There's a boar down there," I whispered to myself, immediately squeezing the trigger. Boom, bullseye. The shot was perfect, and the boar went down instantly. We barely had time to celebrate when suddenly another group of boars burst out. I didn't hesitate. My rifle was already firing. In just a few seconds, several more were taken out. It really felt like luck was on our side today. Meanwhile, Amber had chased a boar all the way down to the base of the mountain. The thick brush blocked his view, so he had to stand still and wait out. Eventually, the boar came into view, and with one clean, accurate shot, it was all over. That grueling chase wore us all out. But together, we made our way back, wrapping up one wild, action-packed, and unforgettable day of hunting. In Texas, my uncle's farm was torn apart overnight by a horde of wild boars. Despite being an experienced hunter, this time the sheer number and boldness of the pigs overwhelmed him. With no other choice, he called in our hunting crew for backup. After finalizing the plan, we began our hunt right on my uncle's property. To lure the boars in, we set up automatic feeders. Attracted by the scent of food, the pigs arrived quickly, eagerly foraging every last bit. With their guard down, Marist steadily took her position, locked on her target, and 1, 2, 3, fired. A single clean shot. She dropped the boar with remarkable precision and confidence. At the same time, my buddy Enda and I spotted a few other boars lurking nearby. I closed in, picked my target, and squeezed the trigger. The lead pellet from my air rifle struck the boar's body. Startled, it let out a sharp cry before collapsing. It wasn't a huge win, but it felt damn good and got me fired up. With strength in numbers, we split up across the area to maximize our chances. Each of us focused hard, aiming with care and executing fast, decisive shots. The mission: drop as many as possible before nightfall. The next afternoon, we resumed the hunt on the farm grounds. Right as we arrived, we encountered a sizable group of full-grown boars. They stood frozen, watching us warily. I quickly brought one into my scope and fired. A single shot, and one of them hit the dirt instantly. We moved toward another feeder we'd pre-positioned. The boars hadn't noticed us yet, still caught in the invisible trap of their appetite. From a tall stand, I lined up my rifle and waited for the perfect shot. One squeeze of the trigger and the sharp crack of the rifle echoed. The boar dropped in a flash. We kept spreading feed and waited as the sun dipped lower. True to their nature, the greedy pigs couldn't resist the scent. No matter where they were. I crept closer, hiding behind a bush, watching them from a distance. Once my target was squarely in range, I pulled the trigger. Just one well-placed shot, and the boar dropped on the spot. As night fell, we returned to our enclosed hunting blinds for the final round. I picked a good position, steadied my aim, and when the moment was right, fired. Perfect execution. The shadowy figure dropped back and lay completely still. Wild boars, a familiar name, yet a true nightmare for our community. They don't just invade our fields, they brazenly rummage through residential areas, destroying crops and causing chaos day and night. To root out this cunning beast, our hunting team had no choice but to venture deep into the treacherous swamplands, where they hide, breed, and form their packs. This time, our destination was a swampy area right next to Wayne's home. We chose an airboat for the journey. The roar of the engine thundered through the air as the boat blasted forward at breakneck speed. Seated in the deck, we were all in position, eyes sharply focused. Over there. Without hesitation, I raised my rifle and pulled the trigger with precision. Within just 5 seconds, the animal dropped, unable to fight back. A perfect start to today's hunt. I had spotted another target. The sound of the engine must have triggered its instincts, sending it charging wildly ahead. But no matter how fast it ran, even at 40 kilometers h, it couldn't outrun the cold, powerful muzzle of our rifles. Thanks to the swamp's rich food supply, it has become a paradise for wild boars. Just 10 minutes later, a boar wandered right into Lionel's line of sight. He closed in immediately, gripping his rifle tight despite the engine's jolts, and opened fire in quick succession. Amazing! Despite the difficult terrain, we completed our objective. Now, in the middle of the vast swamp, the wild boar lay motionless, just a dark shadow against the wetland backdrop. After wrapping up yesterday's tense hunt, by the next afternoon, we ventured into an area with taller, denser trees. Using binoculars, our team spotted a large herd of wild boars busily foraging on the ground. We carefully moved in, silently closing the gap and choosing optimal shooting positions. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Bang! Bullseye! A thunderous gunshot echoed across the swamp, instantly dropping one of the boars in its tracks. Deeper inside the quiet marshlands, Wayne was quietly tailing a separate target. He crept forward with measured steps, reducing the distance to increase his shot accuracy. When a moment was right, he didn't hesitate. He fired. Perfect. The bullet streaked forward, hitting the boar square in the body. It let out a single shriek before collapsing on the spot.
Good shot, brother. Good job.
A few hundred meters farther in, I suddenly spotted a familiar dark figure peeking from behind the dense trees. I quickly moved closer, got into position, and waited for the boar to come fully into sight. The shot rang out, startling the boar into a run. But with our seasoned experience, we knew it wouldn't get far. Sure enough, it collapsed just about 10 meters away. Most hunters avoid this swamp due to its harsh and hard-to-reach terrain. Ironically, this has allowed wild boars to thrive even more. In response, we've continued our hunts to control their population and protect the surrounding farmland.
I've taken part in more than a few intense hunts, but the wild boar hunt in the coniferous forests of Siberia stands as one of the most unforgettable. The boars here weren't just numerous, they were massive and ferocious. Facing such formidable opponents, we made thorough preparations before stepping into this wild showdown. Leaving the farm behind, the team made their way into the forest. The dogs were released right away, quickly fanning out to track the prey. Hearing the urge of barking echo through the trees, my heart raced as I dashed forward. The moment I spotted the boar, I fired without hesitation, giving it no chance to escape. Not far away, another boar went down under the fierce assault of the hounds and a well-placed bullet from one of our rifles. Several more boars were taken down shortly afterward. Some were at considerable distances and sprinted at staggering speeds, making them difficult to aim at. Still, we held firm, staying locked onto our targets. Within half an hour, we had eliminated a significant number of these dangerous intruders. most unexpected moment came when a massive boar, easily over 90 kilograms, burst out of the underbrush and charged across a grassy field like a black tornado. Its speed caught me off guard, but I managed to fire just in time. The bullet hit its mark, and the beast collapsed after only a few staggering steps. We hunted relentlessly into the afternoon. No one even considered stopping. Gunshots echoed steadily through the quiet forest, each shot cleanly dropping a target. The atmosphere was electric, team morale at an all-time high. It was a golden opportunity, the perfect time to strike. In just a few quick moments, sharp, decisive shots brought them down one after another. The hunt continued without pause. Even when the boars panicked and scattered, few managed to escape our icy aim. Over the next hour, we silently observed the surroundings and soon spotted a stream of wild boars. They sprinted headlong, oblivious to the trap ahead. We held our positions, waiting breathlessly until the prey stepped fully into view. Then, all at once, the team opened fire, a hail of bullets rained down. Those once familiar silhouettes quickly became nothing more than motionless black shadows.
Do you know which animal is becoming an increasing threat to agriculture and ecosystems? It's the wild boar, with exploding populations across the US, Australia, and Europe. These creatures destroy crops, damage soil, and even pose danger to humans. That's why wild boar hunting is no longer just a passion. It's a necessary mission to protect the natural balance. Following our plan, we headed to the designated hunting spot. As soon as we got out of the vehicle, we surveyed the area from the roadside. The hunt officially began when a wild boar unexpectedly appeared on the hillside, unaware of our presence. Knowing it would soon cross the path, John quickly positioned himself, took aim, and pulled the trigger. The boar was hit clean and dropped instantly. After about 10 minutes of scouting the area, Chris and I followed the sound of our hunting dogs and rushed toward the action. The fast pace and adrenaline made the tension rise. Oh my God! A massive boar suddenly charged straight at Chris. He reacted swiftly and fired, but the surprise counterattack left him slightly injured. The wild boar collapsed around 200 meters away. Hunting wild boars always carries hidden dangers. So if you're going on a hunt, remember to stay calm, observe carefully before acting, and ensure you're equipped with proper weapons, protection, and coordination with your team to minimize risks. My teammates were still posted further down the slope, keeping their eyes on every corner of the thick brush. Suddenly, one of them spotted an entire group of wild boars hiding beneath the dense canopy. Without a word, we all sprang into position, raised our rifles, targets locked. Fire! The first shot startled the boars. We didn't let up and unleashed a volley. As a result, several boars were struck in the chaos. After receiving a report of a boar on the run, we immediately sprang into a full pursuit. With my weapon ready, I locked onto the target and pulled the trigger. The gunfire shattered the silence, but the boar stubbornly kept fleeing. We didn't hesitate, closed the distance, and fired again. It took several more shots before the boar finally dropped the gun. Changing tactics, we split up to widen our search radius. Pushing through dense foliage, I quickly caught up with a boar based on a tip from Frank. Just as the animal came into view, I squeezed the trigger, and to my surprise, not one but two boars were hit and collapsed almost simultaneously. It was an unexpected success, far exceeding our original expectations.
¿Qué hablo, Mimi? Quería jugarme a alguna que yo tenga.
On the other side of the mountain, another high-stakes chase was underway. As usual, we followed our standard drill. Lock onto the target and pull the trigger. But this boar was no easy prey. It zigzagged rapidly and bolted with astonishing speed. We had to respond with multiple shots before finally gaining the upper hand. The boar was eventually taken down.
At.
On our way down the mountain, we unexpectedly encountered another wild boar. We immediately moved into blocking position. I fired as soon as I saw its head appear. The gunshot startled it into fleeing, but it didn't get far. The wound slowed it down and it eventually collapsed.
For the past 2 weeks, villagers in a rural region of Turkey have been constantly complaining about wild boars destroying their crops and even attacking livestock at night. Despite trying various traditional methods, the problem persisted. Faced with this urgent situation, our hunting team teamed up with the locals to take action. And so began the chase for these destructive invaders. This would be our first ambush of the day. We had just gotten into position when the first dark shapes started to emerge from the distance. Startled by the gunshot, the boar bolted, crashing through the underbrush trying to escape. After several more rounds, it finally collapsed onto the forest floor, and I couldn't help but celebrate the moment. Following that first success, our team advanced up the mountain slope. We immediately got into position, constantly adjusting our scopes as the herd moved unpredictably through the rough terrain. The first shots were fired from a considerable distance, a real challenge. But thanks to sharp focus and accurate shooting, we managed to bring down several targets in the blink of an eye. We had only moved a short distance when suddenly, another familiar silhouette appeared. The moment it poked out from the brush, red, quick, clean, and precise. Not far from there,
Another wild boar darted out.
I stood my ground, gripped the rifle tightly, and opened fire. Unfortunately, my first shot missed.
J20 the animal a chance to sprint away.
Luckily, my hunting partner had been waiting further down the slope. Right beside us, another friend fired and sent a second boar tumbling to the ground. The loud barking of our hunting dogs led us to another boar trying to hide. But this one wouldn't go down easy.
Le VN d'instinct driven.
It slipped through narrow gaps and dense foliage. Our team opened fire, but the boar kept weaving through the undergrowth.
Toute manœuvrine et vribulet. In the herd managed to escape.
Leaving us behind, frustrated and regretful. We pressed on over rugged, rocky trails, making our way toward the mountain peak. Scanning the landscape ahead, we spotted a herd of boars charging downhill. Determined not to let them get away, we quickly spread out and blocked off key escape routes. As soon as the boars broke from the trees, my buddy and I opened fire.
Letting off a storm of bullets.
Despite their frantic dash, two of them fell almost instantly. We were certain more wild boars were still hiding nearby. The team kept searching. Suddenly, under fierce pursuit by our dogs, a huge boar burst from the bushes, startling everyone. But this was no ordinary prey. It was strong, fast, and surprisingly agile. One final burst, then it collapsed in the middle of the forest, bringing an end to a truly intense encounter.
The past 2 weeks have been exhausting and stressful for all of us villagers. From dawn till late at night, we've had to take turns guarding the fields because the threat keeps getting worse. Wild boars are swarming in and devastating our crops. Faced with this situation, we made a critical decision to form a specialized hunting team tasked with patrolling, tracking, and directly dealing with the boars. Our first destination on today's hunt was a vast field, where thick bushes made for the perfect hideout for wild boars. But it wasn't entirely safe for them, because we arrived with a pack of agile hunting dogs. The dogs circled around continuously, and within minutes, they caught the scent of a target. My companion and I moved quickly toward the sound, guns in hand, ready for anything. Suddenly, a wild boar burst out of the bushes. Without hesitation, I fired immediately. Though it tried to escape, the critical shot brought it down. It collapsed, unable to stand. We used tracking devices to pinpoint the boars' locations more accurately. It looked like they were headed in our direction. Sure enough, a herd of wild boars suddenly charged out. Without pause, I raised my rifle, held my breath, and quickly aimed at the lead boar. A perfect shot. The boar lost its footing and dropped instantly. Everything happened in a flash, a swift battle, but the result far exceeded expectations. On my way to Derek's location, I was startled by the sudden barking of the dogs, louder and more intense than usual, signaling they had found target. I maneuvered through dense rows of corn to get closer. The louder the barking grew, the harder my heart pounded. But the hunter's instinct surged in my blood, pushing me forward. There it was. The moment the boar appeared, I pulled the trigger. A sharp, decisive shot brought it down right in the middle of the tall corn stalks. Noticing the dogs had charged ahead, full of energy, chasing the boars, we quickly followed. "They're here," I shouted, my heart pounding in my chest. Derek fired several quick shots and within moments had taken down multiple wild boars. His quick reactions in situations like this are something I truly admire. After a tense chase, we stopped for a short rest before continuing. But only a few dozen meters in, the dog's barking rang out again in the distance. I instantly raised my gun. You see, being cautious is always the most important rule in hunting. The boar charged out. I just had to aim and pull the trigger. Brilliant! Our enemy was defeated. Just ahead of where I stood, my companion was also blocking the path of a wild boar. The thick underbrush made it hard to see, but we were determined to track and eliminate it at all costs. All it had to do was slip up for a second. After getting a report from local residents about a herd of wild boars in the fields, we rushed ahead. From a distance, I couldn't let it escape. I moved in to cut it off. Facing the cold, powerful muzzle of my gun, the boar fell instantly in the middle of the vast field. But this was only one of dozens of boars pouring into the fields. One thing's for sure, we will keep hunting. We know the journey ahead will be full of hardship and challenges.
Come on.
According to reports, wild boars often leave the deep forest during the winter in search of food, leading to significant crop destruction. In fact, a study by the Food and Agriculture Organization found that boar activity increases by up to 30% during this season. That's why, despite the bitter cold, we continue our hunts regularly to help control their rising numbers. Our team began the ascent as planned. On sunny days like this, boars are more likely to come out and bask for warmth or forage for food. And for us, that's the golden opportunity. Each member swept the terrain from their assigned positions. From afar, we heard the unmistakable barking of our hounds. Boars were near. I raised my rifle, finger ready on the trigger. Bullseye, headed. Taking down a boar in this remote mountain wilderness is a thrill that words can hardly describe. A boar burst out of the undergrowth. I fired instantly. The mountains are vast, the boars numerous, but we only had our determination and our rifles as weapons. We pressed on toward the summit. Suddenly, what was that? A whole herd of wild boars came charging down from the opposite ridge. I locked my sights on them and quickly pulled the trigger. But these animals are incredibly fast. Despite my efforts, I only managed to bring down one. A 2-day snowstorm had blanketed this place in deep white, forcing us to delay the hunt. But with today's weather clearing up, we returned to the mountain range. "Look there!" Henry shouted, spotting several boars below. We couldn't shoot just yet, had to find a better vantage point for a clean shot. Once I was in position, I steadied my breath and squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew like lightning, striking the boar dead on. Think it escaped? No chance. Take a look. This beast must weigh at least 150 kilograms. No doubt they had just passed through here. Sure enough, our dogs found them and started barking sharply. We tracked them slowly, waiting for Liam to get into position in case we missed our shot. Then the moment came. We signaled and opened fire. The startled boars bolted, but too late. They'd run straight into the guns of seasoned hunters. One more shot for a fleeing boar, just as serve for the damage they caused. Meanwhile, on another slope, a large herd of boars charged out, catching Mervyn completely by surprise. But this was the jackpot we'd been waiting for. Mervyn waited until they moved into a more favorable position. He fired but missed. He didn't give up and chased after them. Thankfully, our hounds had cornered one. It was now or never. This time, the boars had no escape. We were just packing up to leave when we suddenly stumbled upon yet another herd of wild boars. No hesitation, I quickly aimed and fired during that brief moment. The shot rang out across the silent wilderness, marking our final success of the day's hunt.
Kaçmış lan? Ha?
Ada.
On the majestic peak of the Great Dividing Range in Victoria, snow blanketed everything in sight. At first, I came here for a vacation and to visit a friend, but after hearing about the dangers caused by wild boars invading the streets, I decided to pick up my gun and embark on a hunt across this unfamiliar land. Our hunting team set off early in the morning. After nearly an hour of travel, we reached the Great Dividing Range in Victoria. Through the lens, we spotted our target. Several wild boars were moving about, then settled on an open patch of land, seemingly basking in the sun's warmth. And this was our chance. From higher ground, I locked in on the strongest boar and pulled the trigger. A thunderous shot echoed through the Grand Mountains. One wild boar took a bullet and collapsed shortly after. Against the vast white snow, the dark silhouettes of the wild boars stood out starkly. We spotted a herd. Once I was certain one had entered my crosshairs, I firmly pulled the trigger. With a single shot, the wild boar instantly collapsed on the snow. The rest of the herd fled in a panic, but shortly after, we successfully took down another target. The excitement surged as we encountered a herd of nearly 10 wild boars on the run. I aimed for the fattest ones and fired. Each shot hit true, and the results were truly satisfying.
Yatıyordu görüyor musun?
Using a strategy of splitting into smaller teams and surrounding from all sides, we kept spotting more targets. Just over there, a wild boar digging through the snow fell directly into our sights. At over 500 meters away, the bullet still flew with precision and power. After the shot, the boar quickly collapsed on the cold snow. After the recent round of gunfire, we reloaded and continued moving. From high above, we spotted a wild boar. I was sure it had been hit, but it wasn't down yet.
Ha gördüm. Vur.
So we started tracking and pursuing it. After a while, a dark figure emerged. I rushed after it and fired the final rounds, finishing off the massive boar.
Kime saldırıyorsun? Kime saldırıyorsun lan?
On the other side of the ridge, a boar quietly hid among the dense vegetation. But escape was impossible my friends had surrounded it. From the mountaintop, volleys of bullets rained down. Exhausted, the boar tried to crawl away, but the lethal shots crushed its last hope of survival. Despite the freezing weather, sweat still poured after the relentless chases. Yet none of us even considered stopping, and our perseverance paid off. This time, we found another large herd. Breathing heavily, we chased them down and pointed our barrels forward. However, the accumulated fatigue seemed to affect our aim. Most bullets missed. Only one wild boar was injured and left behind. A few more shots rang out, and at last, after all our efforts, that wild boar was finally taken down. At this point, we were truly exhausted. The entire team decided to head back home after a thrilling day of hunting. Although these aren't towering mountains, the coastal Aegean region in Turkey stands out with its low-lying forested hills, where wild boars frequently appear. This has drawn in many hunters, including ourselves. Hunting here has become a familiar activity, serving not only as recreation, but also as a means to control the wild boar population, protect crops, and maintain ecological balance in the area. While making my way up the mountain, I received a signal from a teammate ahead, alerting me that a wild boar was approaching. Without much time to prepare, I quickly moved to intercept, raised my rifle, and took aim. The moment the prey appeared, I fired multiple shots in rapid succession. They were fast, accurate, and within seconds, the wild boar collapsed. After that initial success, I continued to the mountain peak. From that vantage point, we had a clear view of the prey's movement. Immediately, I advanced to cut off its path. Ready to fire, I firmly aimed my rifle at the boar. With a single decisive shot, the wild boar instantly dropped to the ground. Carefully scanning for targets nearby, I was lucky to spot a wild boar hiding alone in a dense bush. I cautiously observed and closed in from short distance. At the perfect moment, I took the shot straight at it, but the cunning beast was quick and agile. It took several shots before it was finally finished off. Although it wasn't particularly large, it was still a decent result.
Gel gel. İki tarafı da kan bak, gördün mü Sofa?
Gidemez.
Ama oğlum.
Just a few minutes later, another wild boar suddenly appeared in our sights. The earlier gunshots had likely startled it, causing it to flee in panic. Not wasting the opportunity, we immediately opened fire. However, its speed made it extremely difficult to aim. Fortunately, after a barrage of bullets, we still managed to bring it down. Returning to the trail for a break, I suddenly caught sight of a familiar dark figure lurking on the opposite hillside. Without hesitation, I rushed over to cut off its escape. As soon as we came face to face, the sound of gunfire shattered the silence. It was perfect. With a well-placed shot, the wild boar was taken down on the spot. After a brief rest, the whole team quickly resumed the journey, heading straight to the mountaintop. Every passing moment, everyone stood ready with rifles in hand, alert and on edge. Suddenly, a rustling sound. John dashed forward, instinctively aimed, and pulled the trigger. But two wild boars suddenly accelerated and darted past the shooting range, escaping by a hair's breadth. Not letting the prey get away so easily, we immediately called in the hunting dogs. With sharp instincts and incredible speed, they forced the wild boar out into the open after a tense chase. As soon as the target appeared, our team quickly tightened the net. Facing an overwhelming advantage, the boar was completely cornered. There was no way out. The pack of hunting dogs operated at full capacity, not resting for even a second. They kept sniffing out more targets and skillfully drove the wild boars toward our ambush zone. Our team was already in position at key locations, determined not to let a single one escape. As soon as the boars emerged, a barrage of gunfire erupted from all directions, and one by one, the animals fell under the unrelenting rain of bullets. Today's hunt was truly a tense, yet thrilling journey. But we also know that the battle with these destructive creatures is far from over. Wild boars are well adapted to the cold thanks to their thick fur and layer of fat beneath the skin, allowing them to survive even in temperatures as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius in snowy regions like Europe, Russia, North America. But despite the bitter cold, they relentlessly search for food and continue to wreak havoc on our villages. To contain the situation, the local hunting team, including myself, immediately set out on a hunt. After standing still for about 15 minutes, the distant barking of hunting dogs suddenly stirred something deep inside me. Without hesitation, I ran toward the chaotic sound. It had to be wild boars, I told myself, raising my rifle. There was a dark shadow burst out from the trees. I pulled the trigger. Surrounded by dogs and hit by a powerful shot, the boar collapsed, lifeless and smoking. Just a few hundred meters away, John's group had just reached their position when they spotted another wild boar. He quickly chose a good vantage point, adjusted his scope toward the target. A single shot rang out in the cold air. In a flash, the boar dropped dead. Fast, clean, and precise. To increase my chances, I didn't stay in one place. I kept moving through the woods in search of new targets. The gunfire earlier must have startled a herd. They were fleeing. No time to think. I adjusted my scope and fired. Luckily, each bullet hit its mark, and the takedown became quick and efficient. As the temperature kept dropping, we waited for another 30 minutes, but saw no more boars. So, the team decided to gather the results of the hunt and head back. The next day, we set out again to search for boars in another forest. Without hunting dogs, we had to be extra alert and look closely for signs like tracks or that distinct musky smell. Thanks to that, I spotted my next one. Its silhouette flickered between the tree trunks. Not giving it a chance to escape, I raised my gun and pulled the trigger with precision. Perfect shot. Another clean kill. Another trophy to mark the day. Wasting no time, I rushed out of the forest to intercept a boar John had just reported seeing. Heart pounding, I steadied my breath and took it. As the boars charged out, I fired. Gunshots echoed, breaking the forest silence. The bullet found its target, exactly what we had hoped for. Snow began falling even heavier, forcing us to head back for safety. But just as we were on the move, a friend suddenly called to alert us.
7-8 tane sap.
A herd of wild boars was charging down, only 50 meters away. I dashed forward, my gun already loaded. All that was left was to pull the trigger. The boar was hit, but tried to flee. It didn't get far before it collapsed. The cold, treacherous forest trails couldn't stop us. This isn't just a hunter's journey. It's a duty to protect our homeland. In a city in Serbia, locals are facing an increasingly serious threat from wild boars. Weighing up to several hundred kilograms, these beasts have become terrifying monsters, striking fear into many people. To address this issue, Serbian authorities have authorized organized hunts to control the wild boar population and protect local communities. And we were determined to take down every single wild boar that had wreaked havoc on local farms the previous week. In such rugged terrain with countless twists and turns, we were fortunate to have a pack of hunting dogs by our side. Once everything was in place, I started making my way up the mountain. Within minutes, the howls of the dogs echoed through the forest. A wild boar was surrounded. Everything was going smoothly. I quickly moved in and fired to finish it off. Perfect. My shot hit dead on, dropping it instantly on the spot. Barely 5 minutes later, the team spotted another boar on the mountain slope. It was a golden opportunity one couldn't pass up. I swiftly raised my rifle, took aim, and pulled the trigger. A few hundred meters up the trail, the growling of our hunting dogs put me on full alert. Wow, it had been ages since I'd seen such a large group of wild boars. With my rifle ready, I squeezed the trigger repeatedly, unleashing a storm of bullets. At close range, two of the boars collapsed in a muddy patch, kicking and grunting their final sounds. The deeper we went into the forest, the denser the trees became, making it harder to observe, track, and shoot. Luckily, with help from our dogs, things got much easier. They quickly pinpointed the boar's hiding spots and barked loudly to alert us. The moment we heard that familiar sound, our whole team tightened formation, rifles ready. The chase grew chaotic until a loud gunshot rang out. Unbelievable, a single, clean shot from my friend Morgan dropped the boar instantly. And take a look at our trophy, a giant beast weighing nearly 200 kilograms. Nature always has a way of surprising us with gifts, and today, the wild boars in front of us were the next gift in line. Forced to scatter and flee from the relentless pursuit of our dogs, the herd broke formation. Seizing the moment, I didn't hesitate. I got into position and took aim. After I pulled the trigger, I proudly watched the boar tumble down the slope, my heart racing with excitement and satisfaction. It didn't take long before our sharp-nosed dogs locked onto another target. We moved in, closely monitoring the situation. This time, Elmer would take the shot. Once the boar was locked in, he pulled the trigger. With a single lethal shot, the boar collapsed and rolled down the hillside.